Good evening, everybody, and welcome to North Yorkshire and the Croft circuit for round 5 of the Season 7 Winter Warmer Championship here at caterhamracer.com. We are in the Last Chance Saloon race for all of our 310-hour drivers here on the server this evening. I am Chris Hutchinson. As you'll gather by the fact that I'm doing the intro at the moment, Scott isn't here at the moment. However, he is speeding his way back home as we speak and will be joining us just as soon as he can. So, yes, we are into round 5 already of this 6-round series. So we're coming towards the end, and we have the grand final next week, and that will be held at either Anglesey or Alton Park, depending on what the drivers choose. But why we haven't actually chosen yet is because we're still waiting to fill the final places of that of that grand final, and we have 6 places left to fill. So let's just have a quick recap of our season so far. And we started our season round 1 at Silverstone International. It was our first qualification race, and we had 3 drivers claim their spot in that grand final event that we're running next week, and that was Will Rossetti, Ryan Hooker and Christian Ciruta. So they have been sat for the rest of the season safe with their qualification spot already sorted. Cadwell Park saw Jaroslav Cherny, Jensen Hassler and Andrew Parker take their spots in that final. And then we went to Knockhill, where Chris Skillicon came top with Blair McConaughey second and John Lang third. And then last week we were at Snetterton 300, where David Rowe managed to finally get his qualification spot, and Steve Arnell and Paul Fernyhoff also being rewarded for their consistency throughout this season with their qualification spots. That is the top 12 spots taken, and there are 6 left tonight. The people who have qualified already are not on the server tonight. They don't get to join us for this one. This is purely people who have not yet qualified, and as you'll see, we've got, I think, 11 drivers. Unfortunately, Emma Costa's connection failed just before we got going, so unfortunately she's had to withdraw. But we've got 11 drivers here searching for those final 6 spots, as we see Mitchell Costas there doing some fantastic drifting just as the stream goes on there. There's a very good car control, isn't it? Here we go, Alan Curtis. But so we've still got some drivers that we might have expected to have qualified already, and whether it's because they haven't been able to join us so far this season or have had limited availability. Rich Gallagher is probably one of the top favourites. He's currently topping the times. You can see on the left hand side of your screen there. He's on a 1:34.0 currently. We're currently 5 minutes into our qualification session. We've got 9 minutes left on the clock to still set their time. But yeah, Rich Gallagher, a very consistent driver, and one we might expect to have already seen with a qualification spot, but he's here with us tonight, attempting to gain his spot. Some other names to look out for. So Tom Willis, again, he's currently third in that spot there. Again, another driver we've seen regularly in our finals, but hasn't been able to join us all year for all the season, and therefore this is one of his chances to get there. Had some issues in the races he did join us for. Ben Masker, you can see in second place, very consistent driver. Again, just been flirting with the outside, but outside of the qualification spots, we haven't quite made it just yet. And Jamie P Stennis, another good driver to call out. He has recovered from his broken ankle, and he's also just back from Donington Park, where he's got out on track for the first time in his in a Mini for the first sort of competitive test session. And I know that he had a great time on what was greasy and then drying conditions. So his first taste of real track experience. I know he's very experienced in commentary and also in the sim world. But yeah, to get out there and do it for real, it gives a whole new perspective. I know he's buoyed up from that. You see him just dripping a tyre over there at the exit. Yeah, we also have Hudson Knight and Jason Knight. We've got the 2 Knights on. Again, they haven't been able to join us too much this season, but they are here for the Last Chance Saloon to see whether they can secure their spot. Hudson is Jason's son, and I think he's 11, maybe 12 now. So one of our younger sim racers, but again, really regularly able to stick it up the front end of the grid, and I'm sure we'll see that again tonight. Sometimes it depends on how much practice he's managed to get in and whatnot, but he's doing well. His dad's currently beating him. His dad's here, Jason, in 6th place. Similar livery cars, so look out for the roll cage differences there to identify the two differences. But here we go. We've got 7 minutes to go in this qualification session. And currently, Richard Gallagher, like I say, is topping out at 1:34.0. In pre-qualification, the kind of best times that we saw were just dipping into the 33s. So 1:33.7, I think, is one of the better times we've seen. So look out for still improvement there, gap at the top there, ready for these drivers to fill if they get a good lap in. But it's easier said than done. Got Ben Maskell there, sat in that 2nd spot, currently sort of on an off lap, it looks like. Tom Willis in 3rd. And then Alan Curtis, another driver who we see regularly pushing the top, even on grid A, but can suffer a bit of inconsistency and tends to go at the moment better in quali than in the race. But we did see some absolutely brilliant stellar racing from him last time, really holding his own and putting the car exactly where he needs to do. And we've seen in the real world and in the sim world his racing credentials increasing, day by day. Got Mitchell Costers there in 5th place, a little bit lower, like I say, than we might expect, but there's still got time. Still got 5 and nearly 6 minutes to go. And then Jason Knight and James P Stennis, Graham Hopkins, Hudson Knight, Anthony Hamilton, Gavin Bolton is currently in 11th place on our grid. We do run with damage on our servers, so as I sort of try and pep talk the drivers before every race, they can ruin their their chances in the first turn. So we try and make sure that they all take it easy, especially on Croft, where we've got an incredibly tight final complex here. You can see Ben Maskell taking the final hairpin, which I think is one of the tightest bends in UK motorsport, if not the tightest bend in UK motorsport. And it's always a hectic place to go through that last thing. In fact, while we've got the opportunity and while we're still waiting for Scott to join us, why not let's go on board with Richard Gallagher as we take us around and hopefully a good lap of the Croft circuit. He's just completed a faster lap, but we're going to Clervaux here, so monstering the curves, trying to carry as much speed as he can into the second part of Clervaux, Hawthorne Bend this is, and you're fine to pick a line for the chicane that you can see up ahead. The car's trying to balance left and right, use all the space available to us and just carry as much speed as we can. We're trying to make that straight line through that chicane as much as possible to carry the speed all the way down this straight. One of the biggest overtaking opportunities on this track. Wait for the change of tarmac and then hammer on the anchors. We want to tuck into the apex, hold it for as long as we can before letting the car go. And you could have actually used a bit more of the exit there, Richard, to carry more speed out into the Jim Clark S's. A really spectacular bit of the track to go and watch and drive through really, really fast. It's probably easier in the sim world than it is in real world. And then we're into Barcroft. It's sort of flat out right, but you're looking for your braking point into Sunny Inn. So again, looking for that change of tarmac. Tuck the apex slightly, but then let the car roll out, drifted a bit too wide there, Richard, as you're looking for Sunny out. You kind of make them into one long corner. There's sometimes a sort of quick pause between the two corners, but it's generally one corner. And now we're into this complex. Holding the speed as much as you can through this left-hand bend, looking for a really hammer on the anchors to the right-hand, tight right-hand bend here. Letting it drift out a little bit, but not being mindful of the fact that we've got to drag it all the way to the left for this final left-hand bend and then out back onto the start-finish straight. So that is a whistle-stop tour. Let's see what lap time Richard gets out of this. He's holding to the right-hand side, so he thinks it's good. Just dipping outside, so not quite as quick as the last one, but that shows good consistency from Richard there to manage that one all the way through. So thank you for completing a lap, Richard, and not spinning off. Generally speaking, I pick laps where people make not such a good effort, and it was good to see that you did make that, and very nearly the fastest time we've seen. But we saw on the previous lap before that he did just set a 1:33.988 with 3 minutes to go. Then not too long for people to make that sort of step up. Still seeing Gallagher out front. Maskell is in second. Tom Willis third. Alan Curtis is fourth. Mitchell Costers is fifth. Jason Knight. Willis has just taken pole position there. So literally as we were speaking, by the 4,000th of a second. Hardly a convincing gap, and there's still more time to be found for these drivers, but he's put it together when it counts. Probably one more opportunity left for everybody to try and get that take that away from him now. Jason Knight and P Stennis 6th and 7th still not moving forward as much as we might expect to see. So they've got maybe one more opportunity to move up themselves. And then we've got Graham Hopkins, Hudson Knight, and Anthony Hamilton, Gavin Bolton. So great job there by Tom Willis to come in here and sort of steal that provisional pole position, we'll call it at this point, given that there's still 2 minutes to go. But he's in the prime seat right now. Tom, we've seen him over I think in a few events. We haven't seen him at every single round so far, but the events he's been at, he's maybe got involved or slid slightly back through the field and hasn't quite, as Richard Gallagher takes that pole position back. I was just watching, so absolutely stellar lap, that one, a 33.669, so actually beating the pre-qualifying lap. So really responding well. Tom, not kind of completing his races in those top spots where we might expect to see him, but this is looking good for his front row opportunity, and 6 places on offer, therefore looking good tonight. He's taking that wide finishing line to try and maximise his speed down this start-finish straight. Obviously in a race situation that would cost you time, but in qualifying it's a good tactic. So we'll keep an eye on his lap time. Just in the background we saw I think it was Gavin having a little bit of an issue out of the final hairpin, and we will see that tonight. It's very, very easy to lose the rear end of these cars out that final hairpin. We've spoken all year about the fact that the rear end of these cars is a little bit shaky compared to the other cars that we drive on the server, and it's great to have a sort of variety of cars to offer our drivers. But they do waggle around a little, and they're a little bit less stable and sure-footed. The other cars sort of understeer a bit more. This car, the front end is a lot more direct and really will turn into the corners, but that does mean the rear is slightly unstable as he bounces around that tower hairpin. As we got, say, 30 seconds left to go, so we'll keep an eye in the race. That's obviously not going to be an ideal situation with the tail end moving around on you. We'll follow Tom around the tail end of this lap and see how he's getting on, drifting a little bit wide, but that gives him a good line out here, coming up into that complex for what will be his final time. You can see the time's ticking down to 0. Anyone who's on their lap will be able to complete their lap, but that will be the end of, no one can start any new laps beyond there. So here we go, coming up into that final tight bend, the hairpin at the end of the lap, nicely tucked in there to the apex. That is to keep it just about inside the track limits, which is awesome. And here we go, down to the line. Can he beat the previously set time of 1:33.669? He can't. He's a 34.0, so another great time, but unfortunately that's just outside. 0.3 of a second in the end in second place. Well controlled qualifying session there by everyone. As we see everyone just on their cool-down laps now, so doing what sim racers do and hanging out there. Jamie Peterson is just touching the grass there, and it just spun the rear out. It really stepped out on him viciously there, so it shows how on the edge these cars can be, and if just a quick clip of the curb can cause you to spin around. Jason Knight looks like he might be completing his lap, so we might as well sit with him and wait for that as the time has run down. You can see the P symbols next to all the drivers' names on the left there, showing all the drivers that are currently sat in the pits waiting for the session order. Gavin on the exit there, spinning off again. As Jason managed to improve his lap time on that final climb through, he did not. So I think that is going to be pretty much session over for everybody. So let's just head back into the pits then, and we'll recap that top 10. Recap the whole grid for you here. So starting on pole position then with a 1:33.5. So he improved again on that the lap afterwards. One of the best times I've seen on the server. 1:33.5 was Richard Gallagher. Tom Willis now a full 0.4 behind. So Richard Gallagher showing he's got some pace in this car. Tom Willis with a 1:33.9, still dipping inside that 1:34. Ben Maskell third up, just outside that 34 bracket. And then we got Alan Curtis, great performance in fourth. Jamie P Stennis moving up to fifth in the closing stages there, just before we saw him sort of move it to put this car beyond the edge of grip and limit. Mitchell Costa's sixth, a little bit lower than you might expect, but still in that kind of qualifying spot position, given that we've got 6 of those on offer. So remember, the top 6 tonight will gain their qualification spot for the grand final next week. Jason Knight in 7th, Graham Hopkins in 8th, Hudson Knight in 9th, Anthony Hamilton Hamilton is in 10th, and we've got Gavin Bolton in 11th. So, an interesting qualification session. I expect that is going to put a bit of confidence there towards Gallagher. It's always nice to start that race in pole position, especially going through this first complex. You've got quite a lot of corners to get through in a very short space of time. So just getting that all done is actually, it's nice to be on that pole position and be with a bit of clear air in front of you. That does assume that he does get a good start. But one car there just not on the grid, sort of down in about that 6th place. So that was the kind of Jamie P Stennis. No, you can see Jamie's car on the left there. So there's someone missing. I think it might be Mitchell Costers. So hopefully he'll get himself sorted and will be able to join us. But yep, so as we're counting down that clock, excuse me, while I doing too many things all at once. Unfortunately, cameraman was just beyond me at that point, but we shall wait here to see if everyone has a good start. I'm expecting to see the front sort of 5 or 6 here contend with Jason Knight and Hudson Knight. They often have their good consistency, which will see them, see them probably good in the long run. So if anyone does make a mistake or slip up, then they'll obviously be able to make good on that. So top 6 spots on offer for next week's grand final at either Alton Park or Anglesey. And who's going to make it? Well, it's not going to be long before we find out. Here come the lights. Let's just check everyone makes a good start then. So Richard Gallagher on pole. We've got Tom Willis alongside him, then Ben Maskell following with Alan Curtis. The red lights are coming on. The revs rise as we head towards the start of this round 5 Croft circuit. And off we go. Richard Gallagher makes a bad start there. He took a while to get away. Guaranteed that he was going to get... he was going to make sure he didn't get a jump start, but you can see he's been swamped by the field, and Richard Gallagher is now down. He's just managed to scrape it back to second. Everyone taking it careful around that first corner as asked of them, and they did deliver. Ben Maskell up there at the inside of Alan Curtis, who've gone wide, and that might leave the door open for Jamie P Stennis, but there's not room for 2 cars through that chicane, and he just dips back behind Alan. So good driving by everyone. We've got a bit of a spin there in the background actually, so someone didn't make it all the way through. And it looks like Graham Hopkins might have been one of those people, certainly 3 or 4 sort of caught up in that. Mitchell Costas did make it to the start, so he is in the race and currently in 6th place, so he did manage to get on the grid just before it. But we've got a breakaway here of the top 5 drivers. So we've got Tom Willis making best start, with Richard Gallagher actually not moving off the line for a good while. Guaranteed no jump start, but now has seen him sort of slip to 2nd place, but we know he's got that speed, so he'll be looking to make that place back. Ben Maskell, driver in 3rd place, again often makes some really quite excellent moves and audacious driving. Whether he can keep it on the track as he's going off, just as I say that, he does drip it off at the exit of Sunny Out, and he didn't seem to lose too much speed, so got away with that to somewhat. Alan Curtis following along in 4th. We've seen Alan do some great results on the way through this season, and can he seal it off in style with gaining one of those qualification spots? Just seeing Alan Curtis overtake Ben Maskell there, so into the complex. He had another mistake, and Peter Stennis also gets through on Maskell. So Maskell has now dripped to 5th. I keep saying dripped. I'm not sure where that's come from, but it's going to be obviously a feature of tonight. So Ben Maskell drops to 5th place with Mitchell Costas there in 6th place in that final qualifying spot. As I said, the Knights up next. Hudson Knight actually making a great start. So clearly Jason Knight did get caught up in that incident through the chicane last time through. Hudson Knight therefore holding honours, but in 7th place, just outside that qualification place for the time being. Okay, I think we can breathe a little bit, and I say that just as Richard Gallagher is heading for the lead around the outside. Is a tough way around Tower Bend. Tom Willis there late on the brakes and protects that. It's actually relatively easy to defend the inside there, but if someone gets a good old run and manages to keep the overlap going into the Jim Clark S's, that's when things get really spicy. So I think Richard's going to have to probably wait until the next lap. There are a couple of small opportunities for overtaking into the complex, but it's always untidy, it's always messy, and into Sunny there can be, as Tom Willis goes off. I think that is going to be how these places are won off tonight. Be little mistakes. You can see Rich Gallagher again on the outside as we come into the complex. You can overtake around the outside. The outside of this first bend becomes the inside of the tight left, but it is hard to hold the speed around the outside, and Tom doing everything he needs to do. So he defended very well and put his car everywhere that Richard wanted to be. into the final bend. Tom not having to defend up the inside, so they'll both make a good enough exit, and they are both in comfortable spots. I know that they'll want to be winning this race, and clearly Richard is keen and thirsty to be in front of Tom there, but a well thought out lap by them both there. And see a little bit further back, we've got the this sort of a triple threat. We got Jamie P Stennis, Ben Maskell locking up again. Ben's just definitely making those little mistakes, and Mitchell Costa's now moving in front of him. He's trying to get his car back up the inside, but remember, there's only space for one car through the chicane. You really do have to thread a needle, and he does just about make it. Mitchell there drifting off to wide as well. It's real feature tonight. We haven't obviously got our regular sort of top finishers and winners. I'm just going to don't know where to look at the moment. Everything's happening. Richard did briefly get past Tom there, but we haven't got our sort of regular top runners. These are more of our midfield battlers. Richard does exactly what I said last time. He's able to go side by side through the Jim Clark S's. It puts on the outside though for Barcroft. He makes it stick. So a great move there by Richard, and Tom, I think now will probably be thinking just as well to hold on at the moment and just keep my safe second place and let Richard drag us away from Alan Curtis, who is in a relatively comfortable second position at the moment. Yeah, all of our drivers here sort of. I've just noticed Scott has joined us, so I believe he's now getting ready to join us anyway. So that'll be a relief to all of our listeners, I'm sure.
I'm sure that's not true. Yes, even everybody, forgive my tardiness. I had some overrunning work commitments that I had to take care of. But I've jumped in right towards the beginning of the race, it seems, and it looks as though we've got a quite intriguing battle at the front with Gallagher and Willis leading out front, with then third, fourth, fifth, and sixth all in their own pack together. Mitchell Costa has just headed for the pits for a particular reason, but I might need a small feel of what happened in the first couple of laps. But it looks like Gallagher and Willis have pulled away initially, whilst we've got a scrap going on for third, fourth, and fifth here, including JP Stennis, who's doing quite well indeed in third place. It looks like he could be on course if he stays there to get himself a decent final top six qualifying spot for the final next week.
So last time round, Jamie P Stennis was behind Alan Curtis, so we actually made these three drivers have been sort of battling. They're all race long so far. We are 5 minutes into this race. Richard Gallagher actually made a poor start off the line and dropped a couple of places. He was lucky to come out in second place and just about managed to get past Tom Willis, but they are free and down the road compared to these three who have been battling. And we did have Mitchell Costas in there, but as he said, you saw him going into the pits last time round, and I think he probably had a track limits infringement. That's normally the reason you have to do it, although the fact he's still in that pits might well mean that he's either got a mechanical or his car's damaged or some other sort of issue has popped up. So unfortunately it looks like Mitchell is going to be out of the running for those top 6 spots that we've got available to next week's grand final.
So Gallagher's lead only about 0.3 of a second. Those two appear to be the class of the field so far at this point. And now we've got Peter Stennis just trying to pull away from 4th and 5th position here. So now that Peter Stennis has managed to get himself into 3rd, it's now between Ben Maskell and Alan Curtis now for that spot. Harrison Knight is 6th. Anthony Hamilton is there in 7th place. It's Graham Hopkins 8th. Jason Knight in 9th, and Graham Bolton in 10th position, and of course then Mitchell Costas, who we hoped would be getting himself up into a higher position, has had to pit with earlier problems, so he's now got to unfortunately that might well be his run to get himself to the bottom done, I'm afraid. I was running wide there with Ben Maskell on the exit of Clairvaux up through Hawthorns now, with about 18.25 minutes to go. And I'm just noticing also the lead gap has pulled out a little bit more. It was about 0.2 of a second a few moments ago. It's now up to about 0.7, so it looks like Gallagher got a much better exit out of the chicane at the S's, and then down the back straight towards the tower bend at the top of the circuit. It is a wonderful circuit, Croft circuit. It might be quite flat, but it does mean it's also quite a fast circuit with lots of fast straights and high-speed sweeping corners, particularly this section of Jim Clark S. If you get it right, it is such a sweet feeling.
Jim Clark into Barcroft is one of the pleasures of driving a car. It's often a really spectacular to look from the outside as well. It's obviously you clenchy when you're in the car itself because it's so fast, and you're absolutely on the edge of what these cars can do. So again, they're both dipping their tyres onto that grass on the exit of Sunny Out. But yeah, really one of those, it's a kind of track of 2 halves, isn't it? You've got this complex section which includes one of the slowest corners in British motorsport, and then you've got the really fast flowing out back places, and then it's not massively wide, and it's quite an old school track in that respect. So Caterhams don't actually look lost and swamped on this track. It's one of those that really does suit the Caterham.
Seems to be suiting 310R pretty well. Gallagher continues on his way. Yannick tries to extend the lead even further. He sets a new fast lap of the race. He's quicker by about almost half a second than Willis and back in second place. There's Ben Maskell, who is now back to sixth. He's made a mistake somewhere. He's now dropped back, not just behind Alan Curtis, but also Harrison Knight as well. So all sorts going for Ben there. He's still in a top 6 qualifying position, but obviously I think he'd like to be a little bit higher than just 6th, where he's right on the bubble and just onto the dirt at Clarebone, throwing it into the right-hander and picking the tail up like that. He's not going to keep his P6 for much longer if he keeps on driving like that.
It's never a dull moment following Ben. Ben's been up into 3rd place. I think he's done every single place so far. He's but not had a consistent lap yet, and that's kind of what we said coming into this, that he is incredibly quick a lot of the time, and he certainly likes using every single last bit of the track and a whole lot more. But unfortunately, he just hasn't managed to keep it under control. However, he's still sat in 6th place, so I don't know what that means for the grand final. I guess brace yourself, everybody, see what he's like around the other 2 tracks. But yeah, it's I think Harrison Knight is Hudson Knight's younger brother still.
So, it's been a while since I've seen him in a race, so forgive me, Hudson, on that one.
We've already got 2 Knights, so we should get another one, then we can have a round table, can't we? But yeah,
that's really true. We could.
Richard Gallagher's definitely had the speed of everyone on this Last Chance Saloon through sort of pre-qualifying and now into the qualifying, into the race itself. Tom Willis is definitely hanging on in there, isn't he? He's gripping on, but the gap has now extended to that second, so Tom will no longer be feeling the benefits of that tow, but still a very comfortable second place over the line there. Richard Gallagher just dipping into the 133s again, so that's that kind of barometer of a really good high quality lap, is when you can dip into that 133s, and you saw Tom there just outside that. So yeah, Richard doing a good job.
Certainly is, and as they press on in the rest of this run, it looks as though it's hopefully going to be quite a solid run for him going all the way through. So as we make the way now through the next part of a lap, and then now looking at where we are in terms of the race order. So just at this point in stage, so Gallagher, then his lead has actually increased. So Willis has actually really fallen back even further now. We're watching Alan Curtis as he keeps up his pursuit of Jamie P Stennis. And then Hudson Knight in 5th position. Ben Maskell holding on to 6th, but he's got a bit of comfort that he has got currently 7 seconds over Anthony Hamilton in 7th place. It's Graham Hopkins back in 8th. There is Ben Maskell, and he's re-caught Hudson Knight after his earlier mishap. He's gone through the right-hander at Barcroft, and then in through the right-hand, just clip the apex, and then back up the pit straight again. Up the back straight, up towards the complex once more. We've got 14 minutes to go, so we're just approaching half distance in this Last Chance Saloon race. Of course, we've had the 4 qualifiers where the top 3 best performing drivers that hadn't previously qualified from a race, depending on which race they were in, is in the mix. As now we see looking at the inside for P5 goes Maskell, takes the inside line. Hudson gets right out of the way on the outside line, and 3 goes into P5. So I think Hudson kind of saw that coming, thought that rather than fight it too much, I'm in the automatic qualifying spot, so even if you get past me here, I'm safe. So I'll let you have it, and then you can drive off and let me be.
Absolutely. The rear end of a kicking donkey is the kind of gap he left there, wasn't it? It was definitely a statement of, you go and have that. I would be happy with my 6. We see Ben, again, using every single last bit. It's almost too much there, really. You want to be your car going in the direction of the track a little bit sooner than that to get some forward momentum and pace off this track. But yeah, Hudson, a very sensible, a wise head on a very young set of shoulders there. And he might well see Ben Nassel again if he continues to be spectacular. You see him drifting off wide here, missing that early apex into tower, which is kind of where you really want that car to be. To sort of maximise that gap. We are seeing some fairly sizable gaps out on track, but Alan Curtis here is caught back up with Jamie P Stennis. So we didn't see the actual incident. So Curtis was running in 3rd place, and then the next time we saw him, he was behind 1 or maybe 2 of them. So the fact he's got some pace tonight, and I'm sure he'll want to show what he can do, but keep in mind that he's still in that qualification spot, which is ultimately the aim for everyone on here tonight.
It is indeed, and they've only got another roughly 12 and a half minutes to make it happen. So now they make their way up towards watching our battle for 3rd and 4th still going on. P Stennis now coming under slightly more increasing pressure from Alan Curtis there in 4th position.
Yep, and Alan Curtis, we've seen, sort of mentioned through qualifying, we've seen him in the real world at the end of sort of last year, the end of the 270 season. He was racing the Caterham Motorsport season. We really saw him take a step up in performance, and at Snetterton he was incredibly, high up the grid. I can't remember the exact starting position, but I think it was something like second, and we saw that kind of continue up into Cadwell Park. So he's upgraded his car. His real world car looks exactly like this silver machine we're looking at now, and he's upgraded it to the 310. So we will be racing a 310 this year. So obviously the sim is a facsimile for that 310R car, and it's great practice, and certainly the racing experience you get on the caterhamracer.com service is just like the real thing. Is just making his move up the inside of Barcroft. It would be a tight old move to go up there. You've got to be brave to keep that one move going, but he does back away in that kind of sensible way. And last week we saw him having some absolute toe-to-toe racing on the sim around Snetterton track, and really showing how far forward he's come. He was late, so he didn't do the academy like a lot of the other drivers in Caterham do. He came sort of straight into the road sports season, and then moved straight up into 270 as well. So quite a big step to take, but proving that you can learn, and he's loving learning on the job, and sort of, I know he really likes his racing, and is very grateful, as most people are, that they get to do that and have fun doing it.
And it's nice to see. It's nice to see someone who's actually being able to do it, dabble in a little bit of both. We do see that, of course, with several of the drivers that we have, including some of those who maybe don't race currently but have done in the past, and those who are using it as a warm-up for the new season, which is not too far away. First rounds are at Snetterton towards the beginning of April, so there's not that long to that. We're right towards the end of April here, so we've got a few more weeks to go until these guys can get out on track and racing for real. But of course, guys like Alan Curtis will certainly be using this as a nice sort of winter, hence the name, winter warm-up, to just shake off any potential race rust for their racecraft. And I have to say, a decent run for P Stennis. He continues to get sort of stronger and stronger, and I think we can, because of the nature of the race, we can ignore the fact that some of the faster guys who are already qualified are out of this. And Alan's not necessarily a slouch of a driver either. He's got his own abilities, and of course, but someone who's able to race one of these cars in real life regularly, to be the one that's chasing down someone who I know did his first proper track session at Donington Park earlier towards the back end of last week, and for him to only be on track for the first time properly last week, but someone who's been sim racing for quite a while, just proves just how quickly you can pick up these cars, and two, essentially just how decent ability on the sim, at least, that James seems to have, that he can hold his own against someone who races one of these things in real life, and is able to do so quite comfortably.
Yeah, there is a difference between sim racing and real world racing. Obviously, in the real life, you get all the experience of the G-forces, all the sort of sights and sounds and smells of being out there for real. But ultimately, the psychology, especially with sim racing, where you're racing real opponents, the psychology of racing and the sort of mechanics of what the car's doing are extremely closely matched, and you can certainly learn a lot from the simulator. And we see in Formula One world, the simulator is a really important part of the kind of journey for each driver now. The top end of the grid of Formula One, with probably Hamilton as an exception, really do hammer home that simulator, and we're seeing it in the Caterham world as well, with DPR and their sort of bespoke in-house Caterham simulator. It's a pretty spectacular beast if you ever get a chance to go and visit their workshop in Red Hill, and it's certainly something they've been using with their drivers for a good number of years. Darren Burke there teaching people on that, and we've seen some drivers on the simulator also choosing to take Darren Burke's tuition up, and the same kind of skills and ways of learning speed out on track for real you can learn in the simulator as well, and then you transfer those skills over to the real world. And James Murphy, who we're going to see in the 420 sort of Caterham 7 UK Championship this year, he's very good at transferring that sort of skill of what does the simulator do, and then how does that going to transfer into the real world. He was fully up to speed last year, wasn't he, in that given that was his first ever year driving that Caterham 7 UK car. He was right on the ball.
Yeah, and that was the crazy thing with just whilst you keep an eye on this battle between third and fourth position, with just see Ben Maskell not too far away. He's just steadily closing in, putting in quick, consistent lap times to close that gap in. So we'll keep an eye on, see if Alan Curtis does make a move. We'll get back to the point in a second, just because Alan is going to the outside to try and possibly get the switch back and make the dummy. A little further back, Graham Hopkins is in there trying to make a move on Hambleton for 7th position. But now we see Alan Curtis taking a slightly wider run all the way through Hawthorns and in towards the S's now. Looking further back, there's Hopkins on the back of Hambleton then. And Jason Knight is just back there in ninth position. He's just said, I think, a personal best, 135.1 for him.
Jason Knight got caught up into some early corner shenanigans, as we like to call them, and therefore he was at the chicane on lap 1. He lost out, and therefore that's why he's sunk right down to 9th place. He qualified ahead of Hudson, as we see. Was that Anthony Hamilton, drifting off wide there and not able to make it back onto the track. So Anthony's there has lost a couple of spaces, and in fact his car looks like it might have come to a stop. It has, so maybe he's broken it. We have got damage on. I'm wondering, Scott, whether some of these drivers are suffering from gear change maladies, and therefore if you break your gear change or break your engine because you've fluffed a gear change, it is possible to do that.
There was a lot of what looked like either steam or smoke coming from that, and I wasn't sure if it was possibly just the effect of a car running on the grass, because you see the couple of the drivers when they do run wide, it's supposed to be sort of dust that's being kicked up, but it actually looks more like steam or looks like smoke when it does. You just saw it in the background there with both Hopkins and Knight made their way through out of sunny in and sunny out, and then down the back straight towards the complex once again, just about 5 3/4 minutes. So now as they turn in through the complex once more, and again just slightly tighter right into the first part of the complex for Knight, and Hopkins then will try and defend the car in the middle of the road, which he does, turns in, and he's forcing Knight to take the slightly wider approaches to get the slingshot off the corner and then down the pit straight once again. And unfortunately we have lost Anthony Hamilton, so whatever the issue was for him, whether he did over-rev it or simply have some kind of a gear issue, it's forced him to come to a halt. So we've just got the 9 left with 5 1/4 minutes to go. I'm going to go back to the point which I was going to talk about before we got engrossed in the battles that we had before us, and that was James Murphy. I remember last year when he jumped into the 7 UK Championship. I remember talking to him early in the season, and he said all he wanted to do was simply just come away. Well, I spoke to him at Knock Hill before we went out for a session, and he said all I wanted to do was simply just get myself a podium and get a good result. That's all he wanted to do, and he'd already picked up a win in the first race of the weekend. Picking up a place, meanwhile, is up the inside. Is Jason Knight, has a lock up on the inside of the tower. A little wayward there for Graham Hopkins on the apex, but he gets it gathered up, and with a superior pace, Jason Knight is through. But just to kind of finish off the point, and I think the fact that James, like many, has used the series that we put on here to kind of use that opportunity to gain the understanding of the car and how it feels, and to get the idea again of which way the circuit goes, was quite key, particularly when it was the 2 cars are very much at extremes. One was the Academy car, one was the 420R, and even though it was a 2020 spec car, he was obviously, I'm sure, still learning about what kind of speeds, what kind of braking points, what kind of turning points, whereabouts the apex was going to be for corners in this kind of car, what kind of cornering speeds he was looking at. He was surely using all of those as little reference points to think, right, where can I sort of use those to kind of build as baselines to build upon when I go to testing, and when I get to qualifying, and then when I'm building up my race pace. So that just shows how, not only just how competitive these championships are, and also how competitive they are in terms of the transferable skills, but also as well how incredibly accurate and realistic the models are that the likes of Benobre and Joust and Cherney, and the test drives that they've had on top of that have been so crucial to making it as accurate as possible, that this is probably the best training tool for anyone, whether they're experienced or just starting the academy, to get themselves at the wheel of a Caterham and experience what it's like. And now that we're sort of building towards a full range, it seems there's going to be literally a Caterham for every step of the way if you want to learn your craft and learn how it works as you go up the official ladder. Yeah,
absolutely. And just to sort of emphasise that point, we haven't got Matt Larby on tonight because he is off to Castle Combe tomorrow, or he is down there now, I believe, because he is there doing his ARDS test and day with the Caterham Academy Championship for real. So he races with us on this service and has been learning his craft and his skill as we see this battle developing here for the third, fourth and fifth. So it's really good with Ben Maskell having caught back up again, but will he make it stick? So Matt Larby out there for real tomorrow. So good luck to him to go and get his race licence, call himself a race driver properly for the first time, and that's always an exciting time of the year.
It is, particularly when you see the latest qualification Academy drivers finally get their licences, pass their tests, and start their racing journey for 2022. And of course, it's not long for them to get going. Of course, they will do their competitive sprint as always, and then of course they'll move on to the circuits for real. And that they'll mostly follow the real Caterham, the rest of the Caterham paddock throughout their throughout their sequence of events throughout 2022. So we'll keep an eye on them. Still keep an eye on these three, of course, as well in this race too, because we're watching this battle for third place, which is ever so slightly just creeping up closer and closer. So P Stennis doing a grand job so far of keeping the two cars behind at bay. Both Curtis and Maskell doing an excellent job.
He's had to defend pretty much the whole race that we've been watching him, as Alan again looking up on the inside of Croft. They can't make it stick. We're coming down to 1 minute 40 to go. He might have a bit more of a push. Ben Maskell looking opportunistically at the inside. P Stennis loses the rear of the car. 3 wide. That surely can't work going in sunny out, but it does just about. And they're well driven. Everybody, remember, they've got a qualification spot. At the moment, we're nearly down to school sports day. Everyone's a winner type scenario. But no, at the moment, P Stennis does lose out, but he's still in the qualification spot, and he surely doesn't want to lose it. He taps the rear end of Alan Curtis's car, so that was always going to end in a bit of issue. He does wait for Alan to get going again, but Ben Maskell was definitely the catalyst that caused all that kerfuffle.
Yeah, what it looked like to me is, I think initially there was the move which Ben looked to try and make, and then that then sort of a little bit in the middle of the two apexes of the sunny in sunny out complex. That just seemed to unsettle him a little bit, and because of that, he sort of caused everyone to check up. They then went 3 abreast through sunny out, and then through that Maskell took full advantage of that. And then I absolutely don't think that sort of little nudge that P Stennis made was at all intentional. I think it was simply just him misjudging his braking point, mainly because he was probably a little bit flustered of trying to get himself back into the rhythm, because he'd had it disrupted a little bit by the fact that he'd been from 3rd to 5th. So, which is understandable, because it happens to anyone under that sort of pressure to be able to have to reform yourself. But he is now right on the tail of Alan Curtis, pushing on. We probably should give some attention to our leaders, because meanwhile back at the front they're still pushing on. There is Richard Gallagher, by the way, who haven't really talked too much about him, apart from the fact he's been pulling away so much, and it's probably a bit of a surprise even to him that he's taken this long to get an automatic qualifying spot. But he's going to make his way out through the complex into the hairpin for the final time, turns his way in, and he will be the first of 6 drivers to book the final automatic spots into next week's grand final of the caterhamracer.com 2022 Winter Warmer, up to the checkered flag, and it is a victory for Richard Gallagher. He takes that first automatic qualifying spot. The second spot and second in the race goes to Tom Willis. And now we've got a little bit of a wait before 3rd, 4th and 5th come to the flag. We're just heading through the complex you see in the background now. Looks like, I think Alan Curtis, well no, I think Matt Maskell's got a few seconds anyway. P Stennis is right on the back of Alan Curtis until the way through. You might possibly get a chance to sprint to the line. It's 3rd for Ben Maskell, 4th for Alan Curtis and 5th for P Stennis. And then Hudson Knight in 6th, from 7th place for Jason Knight for him. Then it's Graham Hopkins in 8th, and Graham Bolton, we actually see him pit towards the end as well. So he doesn't make the flag, sadly. It looks like if he does, he's a lap behind. So it is then Hudson Knight who takes the final qualifying spot ahead of Jason. So son beats father on that one. Meanwhile, I think in the background, Richard Gallagher's quite happy with that qualifying spot, because I can see dust and smoke in the background of the catering doing donuts. So that's obviously clearly him being thankful for his strong result. But yeah, despite the smaller turnout, obviously because it was mainly all full of drivers who hadn't automatically qualified, a decent run for everyone so far, relatively trouble-free. And here's how it's finished up. So Richard Gallagher then takes the victory by 5.9 seconds. He was under pressure early on from Tom Willis, but managed to pull away and get that gap nearly 6 seconds in the end, and that is punching his ticket to next week's grand final. Tom Willis is in second, finishes second. Ben Maskell finishes 3rd. Then it's Alan Curtis and P Stennis, who could have got himself 3rd place, but was very, very close indeed, but just narrowly missed out. But still a very solid drive nonetheless. Good effort from him to get P5. And Hudson Knight in 6th. He gets the final automatic qualifying spot, which means sadly Jason Knight, Graham Hopkins, Gavin Bolton and Anthony Hamilton will have to watch from the sidelines next week, as will also, I'm afraid, the Costas duo of Mitchell and Emma as well. Those are the 6 drivers that I'm afraid did not make qualifying spots. But with that final race, Chris, of course, we have our final 18 drivers, provided that there are no absentees, of which I'm sure there might be. I'm guessing on that essence, off the strength of those race results, that the 7th down to 12th in many cases, if they're around, will probably act as something of a reserve system. So, depending on the order they finished, I'm sure that possibly whoever was 7th might be first reserve if they're around.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, yeah, and if we have a report that someone can't make the grand final, who's already got their qualification spot, then we absolutely use the result of this race to figure out who's up next. And yeah, so all is not lost for the for those following drivers, you can certainly keep your ear to the ground, because you will potentially have that chance. And just to finish off a point that we were making earlier, that if you do want to get involved and you do want to start driving these cars, we've got a new season starting soon, and come over to caterhamracer.com and understand. There's some documents, and you can come and join us on Discord and find out all about how do you get involved, how do you get your VARDS license. That's our online equivalent of a sort of racing license that you gain to come and join us here and come and race some of the best catering racers that we've got in this country.
Yep, and that's definitely not an understatement. There are certainly some fine catering racers that do turn up for these sim races and do quite well. We've even had one or two British GT drivers drop in and have a go as well, and they've been quite impressed too. So I think once again it's that time to have you wander down the virtual pit lane and see who is available. Of course, it's nice to have a chat to some of the drivers who we don't normally get to have a chat to, because in a nice possible way, they're not always in the top three or in a position to get into the top three. Richie Gallagher arguably is in some cases, as is also Tom Willis and Alan Curtis, because Tom is usually interviewed in the top three in a different context, not in the sim but more in real life. And a good to hear also Force and Ben Maskell as well, if it's available. So once again, of course, you are free to drag in who you want to drag in and see what they have to say after that rather intriguing Last Chance Saloon race to put the final 6 spots for the final.
Like you say, Richard Gallagher is someone we do sometimes speak to and have done in the past, especially more recently. But back in the commentary box, Richard, after a well-controlled race, bad start, I'd say, but other than that, really good.
Hello, chaps. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, perfectly.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a terrible start. The lights didn't go out for me.
It does happen occasionally, yes.
Yeah, so I just had to react to everyone else and cursed a little bit, but tried to hold my patience together and just get underway.
Okay, but you dealt with the sort of the battle from the Willis, and did quite well with a great move, and off you went.
Yeah, I hope I don't get the naughty step for that one. I think I put myself in a bit of a bad position on the outside and may have run a little bit wide, just trying to avoid a collision with Tom there. But after that, it felt good. I managed to keep it within myself, not push it too hard. Got a couple of reasonable laps, nothing brilliant, but it was good. It was a nice confidence booster, that one. And
late in the season, but solid and secured now, and so ready for next week's grand final.
Yeah, I sat a few out because I was a bit under the weather. Maybe with the COVID, I'm not quite sure. But glad to be back and racing with you guys again.
Great to have you back as well. So look forward to seeing you next week and see what you can do.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Alrighty, let's grab second place, Tom Willis. See whether Tom, have you got us in the commentary box?
Hey, Cheesy.
Hey, so you've done it at last. I mean, a great start. Looked like you might take a bit of a gap, but Gallagher just had that speed on you and made a good move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He had the pace on me, and a little bit nervous going side by side with him on lap 1 and 2, but it was good fun and managed to keep it on the track, and then had a slight scary moment on the last lap where my screen went black for about 2 seconds.
That's not ideal.
Yeah, luckily it was on the straight, so I got away with it, but I don't know what happened there. But anyway, I'm happy to finish second and happy to make it into the final next week.
Not the most exciting of races for you, but ultimately, job done, qualification spot earned, and next week is the real deal.
Exactly, yeah, that sounds about right. It was quite exciting for me. It probably wasn't watching for you guys, but I was feeling the pressure, so I did trying to keep it on the track, which I haven't been very good so far this season at doing that.
The 310 is harder to manage, isn't it? The rear end is definitely more skittish.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't know. I find it much easier to drive than the 420 in the Academy car, but it's just lack of practice in this season for me.
Well, time to get some laps in on the server, So
yeah, I'll do my best.
Congratulations, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys.
And like you say, let's see if we can get in some people that we don't normally speak to. So Alan Curtis was next up. Hello, Alan. Have you got us in the commentary box?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, what a kind of an exciting race. It looked like it was going to be ended in a number of different exciting ways, but ultimately you all came through and you grabbed your qualification spot.
Yeah, quite pleased with that. I had a great battle with Jamie. Unfortunately, I was in third and I had to serve a penalty, so just put one wheel out, I think, on sunny out. but then sort of recovered a bit, and then me and Jamie battling, and Ben said thank you very much and crept up on us and got us on the sunny and sunny out again.
I think 3 wide through sunny in and out is probably not a comfortable place to be, and by the time you all opened your eyes, he had scarpered off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, but no, it was really good. Really enjoyed that.
Great, well done, and we'll see you next week.
Great, thank you. Cheers, bye.
And we'll also finish off with Jamie P Stennis after his real on-track escapades. He's joining us here in the commentary box with a qualification spot, and quite an exciting race there, Jamie, at the end.
Yeah, it was hard work. I'm still, although it's fixed, I'm still struggling with my ankle a little bit. So I was having to use the clutch pedal for the first time in these cars, and it's very snappy under braking. And I thought Alan was crowding me, but I didn't realise. I've just watched it back. I didn't realise Ben was alongside him.
Yes, it was 3 wide. It wasn't
sunny out, and I was a bit like, "Oi, give me some more room." But yeah, I was getting really tired towards the end. That's why they caught me. So still P5. So I'm happy with that. But they're hard work, these cars.
Yeah, with an ankle that's not at full speed, you're always going to sort of run out of steam at some point. But and also just the fatigue of doing 25 minutes. It's good practice, and hopefully we'll see you on track for real, not just in a test session, but maybe racing later in the year.
Tell you what, me driving the Mini last week, an absolute doddle.
Yeah, I have to say, for people listening in who've not tried on real racing, yes, sometimes sim racing can actually be harder. So good job, well managed, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
There you go. I think we've spoken to some people we don't always get to speak to, so that's nice. And congratulations to all our qualifiers tonight. And we look forward to bringing back all the big guns next week. We've got all the big name drivers off our service back in for top 18 best we can do, and see who's going to be champion for season 7. Sorry.
Yeah, indeed. It's the time has flown these last 2 years. Well, it's not even 2 years, is it?
Yeah.
But not just yet. But good to hear from some people that we don't always normally hear from, and good to hear. So that, as we said a few times, that now does set the stage for what is going to be next week. Now, of course, as we mentioned for a couple of times throughout these last few weeks, the final round is not set in stone just yet, because that actually, and this is as dangerous as it sounds, is going to be in the hands of the drivers, because they will decide which circuit they want their season finale to be at. It will either be at Alton Park International, or it will be at the Anglesey Coastal Circuit. Whichever one it's going to be at, it will be next week on the 1st of March. And it will... I was getting the date confused. Yes, it will be the... It will be the 1st of March when that takes place. And ultimately, it is one of those competitions where pretty much, Chris, winner takes all. It's pretty much whoever comes out on top out of the entire race will take home the Winter Warmer title. And it really is one of those. It's one of those other knockout competitions that is very similar to ones that you see in single seaters, particularly the Formula Ford Festival and the Wartays Trophy, where literally it's just one race, one shot. If anything happens in that race that puts you down the order, if you can't scrabble your way back up towards the front to try and win it, that's your chance gone, and you have to finish where you finish. So there's obviously going to be tense. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be quite intriguing to see how it all plays out. But ultimately, I think it's going to be one incredible race, given the fact that we've got so many top drivers in there, that including the ones that progress tonight. It should be quite an action-packed and talent-packed field, and should produce hopefully one of the, I'm hoping at least, this is one of our first proper races that we've had with the new 310R car in one of our series, and for its first, to conclude its first season, hopefully we get a race that befits the kind of car it is, which is a bit of a handful, but quite fun to drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen, we'll be welcoming back Will Rossetti, who ran away with that first opening and sort of showed how well he gelled with this car and made it look easy, as did Cherney in his victory. We've seen Christian Charito and David Rowe, all of those just absolutely sort of nailing it at some point or other throughout the season. So they'll be back on one grid again with the supporting cast of, the absolute best that we've seen all season. And yeah, it's going to be exciting races. And we had the 6 names from tonight. So Richard Gallagher, Tom Willis, Ben Maskell, Alan Curtis, James P Stennis, and Hudson Knight as well. So yeah, great to see all of those qualify, and we look forward to seeing them next week.
We do, and of course we hope to see all of you next week for the broadcast for when we're deciding who wins season 7. Feels crazy to say that, but season 7 of caterhamracer.com, the 2022 Winter Warmer Series, which gets us in shape for the real life series, of course, when season 8 kicks in, and that will be following the real life catering calendar as we did the same thing last year as well. And that should be pretty exciting, because the first round essentially will be being at the real life first round location, which is going to be Snetterton, and of course that will progress from there all the way until about October. So it's a bit of a more long-term project this time as it has been before, but the racing won't be any less intense or any less entertaining. So 5 races down, 1 race still left to go. The 4 qualifiers and the Last Chance Saloon have set our 18 car field, provided there aren't any dropouts between now and next week, and they will battle it out to become the Season 7 champion, the 2022 caterhamracer.com Winter Warmer winner. So tune in next week to see how that one plays out. But from myself, Scott Woodwiss, and Chris Hutchinson, and all of us at caterhamracer.com, once again, thank you for tuning in, and join us next week for the all-important grand final to see who we crown our Season 7 champion to be. It's going to be quite an exciting affair. But until then, take care, and we'll see you next week for the big event. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.